What's going on, everyone? I'm Jelli of the Core Enforcers, and I'm here not with a video that's called the Core Chat Podcast. I actually have a draft league analysis for the Eon World Trophy, the first ever season. I'm really glad that Automatic was actually kind enough to invite me to this, as this will actually be my final Wi-Fi draft league this generation, and there are several people who I am excited to battle, who have never battled before on this roster, so it should be an exciting time right here. But anyway, onto the important stuff. This draft system was based around points, and each coach had 1,000 points to draft a roster of 11 Pokemon. I was actually randomized into the back wheel pick out of the 12 coaches, which I'm actually quite happy about, because when you have a smaller group of coaches, it's so easy to just grab something really valuable, despite being the wheel pick, since there's so many valuable picks still around. Obviously not the top tier stuff like Celesteela, Lando T, but there's definitely some really great Pokemon, as you guys will see when I talk about my wheel picks, so let's go ahead and show off what I got. So starting off this draft here, Garchomp actually fell all the way to the wheel, which is obviously such a steal. I actually had the opportunity to try Mega Garchomp in a Showdown League recently, which I really did enjoy. I'm also using regular Garchomp in an ongoing Showdown League right now, and I'm having a lot of fun building with it, so you can see that I'm quite satisfied with this pick right here. I'm a big fan of Stealth Rockers that have some natural bulk to them. It's why I love Pokemon like Empoleon and Hippowdon, and Garchomp definitely doesn't lack right there. Garchomp also gives me a really nice speed tier to start things off here at base 102. It's not extremely fast like some of the other round 1 picks such as Zeraora or Tornadus T, but it's still a very reliable choice scarf, and it definitely doesn't lack in the speed department at all. It's also the only Z Crystal user that I have on this roster since it costs so many points. It actually costed 180 points, so I couldn't afford to make another Pokemon a Z Crystal user. But the value is really there with sets like Z Sandstorm, various coverage options, or even just Stab Tectonic Rage or Devastating Drake right here can be very nice. So overall, I'm very glad that I scooped up the Chomper, and let's go ahead and move right along. So as you can see right here, despite having the lowest round 1 draft position, I arguably got one of the scariest cores in this draft with Megadiancie coming in here at round number 2. This core immediately gives me 2 Stealth Rockers, but unfortunately Megadiancie does have to Mega Evolve the first time it clicks a move, so I can't like hold back the Mega for a turn just to get up Hazard, so maybe it isn't the best Hazard option unless I'm like calling a switch out. However, it can function as both a great win condition with Rock Polish for speed control, and it can also boost up in Wall Break with Calm Mind, so it can pressure both offensive and bulkier drafts, which I definitely enjoy about it. Sub Endeavor sets are definitely a thing too. That can always help against super bulky set of Pokemon that I need backup for, such as Reuniclus. Its coverage isn't too great. Besides Dual Stab, it's really just Earth Power and Psychic or Psyshock, so it is sort of one-dimensional, but I know from experience it does its job very well, and I think I've talked about enough about it right here. I'm excited to show off what route I went. So what I love about the wheel pick is the great cores that you can form knowing that nobody can snipe you in between. And as you can see here with Slowbro, which is the start of a Regenerator core, it's pretty clear what sort of mana I decided to grab following this up. But first things first, Slowbro does provide me with some key resistances that I did lack up to this point. For example, the Ice resistance to go ahead and help out my Garchomp. It does also resist Steel and Water, which Diancie obviously really appreciates. Then there's some really nice general resistances like Fighting and Psychic, which neither of the other two resisted at all. So in my eyes, this is a really perfect start to a defensive portion of my roster. Beyond that, its coverage isn't that bad. It gets Ice Beam, Fire Blast, it gets great utility in Thunder Wave, reliable recovery with Slack Off, and it can even set Trick Room, which obviously nothing on my roster really abuses Trick Room yet, but there are some key threats down the road that can potentially use that. So let's talk about the second half of my Regenerator core in round number 4. And rounding out this Regenerator core here is actually a Moongus. Now, I'm going to be honest, I did not even check whether Tangrowth was on the board at all when submitting this pick, even though it is arguably better. I wanted to try a Moongus no matter what. Even now, I don't even know whether Tangrowth went before or after my pick here, but I'm definitely happy I get to try a Moongus before the generation ends. Rocky Helmet on Regenerator mons is honestly just so good for win conditions, since it's essentially just free damage, and that could be vital, even if it means just giving the opponent momentum as they U-turn around your team. Amoonguss also gives me some key resistances to types such as Grass and Fairy, which actually did run through my team and my roster up to this point, so that's definitely really nice right here. Assault Vest makes it a great mixed wall as well. I've seen double Assault Vest Regenerator be very effective in the past, so that's something I do want to bring to a game at some point, but besides that, there's not too much to Amoonguss. Let's go ahead and talk about round number 5. Next up here, I wanted a Pokemon that can give bulky rosters a really difficult time without the need to set up. Obviously, regular Garchomp can do that with Swords Dance, and Mega Diancie can do it with Calm Mind, but Heracross with the Guts is such a nice option right here. You'll see later that I drafted quite a few Pokemon that give me momentum, so I can get this on the field as my opponent pivots, and the orb that provides me Guts can go off the turn I get Heracross onto the field, which is really nice against fatter rosters. Obviously, Scarf Moxie is a thing right here too. Its speed tier can be a little bit slow for a Scarf, or I would much rather just Scarf something like my Garchomp or later picks, as you guys will see. If I want to opt for that, I have to ensure that I have safe pivots for the Pokemon that would Revenge Kill Scarf Heracross. It's a great sleep absorber too, since with Sleep Off I can just throw off gets boosted attacks and not really care. I don't really mind sharing that strategy since everybody knows about it, so yeah. Overall, very excited to go ahead and give Heracross a try right here. Ideally, it can go ahead and do some work. Maybe we even see a Scarf Maxi sweep one week. You never know. I did draft some speed, like immediate speed next, so let's go ahead and discuss that. So I'm here at the halfway point of the draft, and I really have to identify what my draft lacks at this point. The two big things that I saw were that my fastest Mon was Megadiancie, and I currently have no Earthquake switch in, and I decided to deal with the speed issue first, and Jolteon is sort of the perfect option right here. I did just mention Volturn into Heracross will be a thing, and Jolteon gets that started right away perfectly. It does also give me another electric immunity, so Volturn is such a bad option against my draft, between all the residual damage I can get from Rough Skin from Garchomp, as well as Rocky Helmet on my Regenerator Pokemon, and then I have these two immunities to Volt Switch right here. Jolteon also gets Baton Pass for secondary momentum options, but that's really only an option if I'm scared of ground types coming. I do also have to double check on the rules of soft passing. I don't know if I can just raw baton pass without any stat boosts. That's definitely something I don't want to take a forfeit loss due to, so that's going to be important right here, but that's really all there is to it besides like cheese wish sets, which I'm definitely not going to be bringing to this season, so let's go ahead and talk about round number 7. So I know I just mentioned patching up a ground spam weakness, and here I am adding more Pokemon that are weak to ground type on my team. Empoleon does give me something I did not have though, which is Hazard Control. In fact, all of my next 3 picks, including this one, are defoggers, so this will not be the only Hazard Control option, of course. The double water doesn't really matter because they only share one weakness to electric, and I've already mentioned how well my roster does against electric types. The main reason I picked Empoleon though, beyond the defog, was for the steel typing. I wanted a reliable way to check dragon spam without having to use something like Megadiancie as an offensive pivot, because that's just so risky, right? Aqua Jet priority is also very nice too. It does get knockoff. It's a 3rd stealth rocker on this roster, so overall I'm quite satisfied with Empoleon as my steal. I do have a championship with this on the team, so it's not like it's unfamiliar to anything. So that's really nice right here. Let's go ahead and patch up that ground weakness though. So here's a ground immunity, a great dark type, and even more hazard control for my roster being Mandibuzz. I think every roster needs a reliable dark type to avoid mono attacking setup from Pokemon like Reuniclus and various other psychic type Pokemon. It does also get U-turn, which I absolutely enjoy slow U-turn in this format. It can get me slow momentum into Pokemon such as my Heracross, which I did already mention is a key strategy for my roster right here. Its abilities have their uses too. I've actually used a weak armor Mandibuzz as a Mega Medicham deterrent before. Essentially what happened is I pivot in, I take one hit with my physical defense, and then they have to call, do I attack and Brave Bird the Mega Medicham, or do they switch out on that, or do they potentially let me roost off all the damage and I can force this situation again later, right? It's definitely something that the opponent does have to keep in mind. Besides that, it also gets taunt, phasing, as well as knockoffs, so lots of cool stuff right there, but let's go ahead and move on to where I went from here. So like I mentioned, we have a 3rd defogger in a row here with Flygon. The main thing Flygon does for me is patch up the Edgequake weakness on my roster. Mandibuzz did help with the ground immunity, but it really wasn't enough. I'm also a big fan of Dragon Spam, so I view having both Garchomp and Flygon on the same roster together as really a benefit, especially since all their weaknesses are already so patched up right here. Flygon also provides me more momentum, as well as a base 100 speed tier, which I did not have up to this point. It does also have access to reliable recovery, so if I want to run like a bulkier variant to help check a ground type, such as Landorus T for example, this can for sure act as a wall in that sort of situation. Other than that, Tailwind and Dragon Dance for endgames are definitely options, but it's pretty weak. I'm pretty sure it only has like base 100 attack, so I don't know how reliable this weak potential really is right there, but you never know. It's not something that can be completely ignored, but we only have a couple picks right here, so let's go ahead and move right along. My second to last Pokemon here was Mordor, which I definitely have experience with. This will actually be my 3rd season with Mordor. Now, I would like to point out, between the 2 seasons that I've had it, I've brought Mordor to, I want to say, 6 games, and it's only been Belly Drum. That's such an endgame strategy that's so fun to execute, but I honestly do believe it's also the better breaking option, right? Sure, specs or other special sets are neat, but if you can play out offensively and get the Belly Drum off without dying, it can actually overwhelm bulky rosters or fatter team compositions and really just pave the way for other offensive members right here, so I really think Belly Drum is the more reliable breaking way, as well as the more reliable win condition right here. Mach Punch also provides me a great set that can also, use priority against faster threats that may outpace Mordor, even after a Flame Charge, so that's quite helpful in itself right here, but we only have one Pokemon left right here, and it's one I've never used before, so let's go ahead and reveal that and close things out. And rounding out my roster here, we have Ambipom, which is a pick that I really value for the speed tier. I noticed that I had a pretty big gap between Jolteon at 130 and Megadiancie at 110, and I really didn't want a Pokemon like Talonflame or Weavile to have the ability to run Adamant Natures against my roster. Normal spam can actually be quite effective for sure, especially since I have so many ways to pressure steel types between my double grounds and Heracross. It does also provide me with a ghost immunity, which I guess Mandibuzz can sponge those hits anyway, but if I want a more offensive pivot right here, Ambipom is also an option. The last thing is that it also builds on my Volturn being another U-turn user. It does also get Baton Pass, so I should really check on the raw Baton Passing rules, whether I can actually do that or not. And yeah, that is going to be the draft. I know this video is kind of short, but it's really just a draft analysis, right? I'm just showing you guys what Pokemon I had and why they fit together. I'm sure like most of you already know what the Pokemon individually does, so that's why I don't think that draft analysis videos that last longer than 15 minutes at most are that effective. It just gets so rambly, right? So I hope I did a good job explaining why I think the roster fits together really well, and ideally we can have a successful season right here. But let me know what you guys think, of course, down below in the comments section. Week 1 will be live, I believe, this Wednesday, so that should be good, and stay tuned for that.